Today is yoga for anxiety. Today we're just going to try and work hard. So think about the physical body. Try and get into the physical body and out of the mental cognitive head. So begin to ground down on your back, land on your back, bring your feet down, knees up, and just kind of land on the ground. Starting to really soften into the ground, soften into present moment. And I invite you to make a little promise to yourself for this practice to really land in the now and try and stay in the muscles as we're moving. So if you're just moving and thinking about your to-do list and things that are going to happen after your practice or things that have happened before your practice, some of the movements that we make, one, are just going to be like in the exercise of going to the gym, and two, you have potential for injury if you're not focusing. So we're going to challenge ourselves a little so it's a little easier to stay in the physical practice. So landing on your back, starting to notice what is present. It will also be handy if you have a chair for this practice, because we're going to work on some balancing stuff. So landing on your back. Notice what is present physically. So, what's going on in the shoulders? What's going on in the hips and the low back? Notice what's going on in the muscles of the face. And whenever our thoughts pull us away, start to check back in on the muscles. Start to just draw your focus to certain muscle places where you are getting familiar with. Places where you're starting to be aware that you have tension. So when your thoughts pull you away, do you automatically squeeze the muscles of the face, the shoulders, in between the shoulder blades, maybe the muscles of the jaw? Starting to have that connection. When your mind draws you away, what happens in your physical body? So whenever you're pulled off the mat, draw yourself back to a physical experience, having an experience in your physical body. Start to notice what's happening with the breath. And take in some cooling breaths. So we're going to work with a couple of cooling breaths, making a little O shape with our mouth and just breathing in nice and slow through our mouth and then breathing out nice and slow. And your mouth can be in any shape as you breathe out. The cooling breath is the drawing in through the O. So drawing in nice and slow. And maybe sighing out of the mouth. Landing on the mat, letting your body just kind of fall into the ground. And then we'll start to feel the muscles of the neck. So take your head nice and slow, chin to shoulder, and then back over slow to the other shoulder. Just trying to feel the muscles of the neck. Bring your chin back to neutral. Pull your shoulders up to your ears. Pull some tension into your shoulders. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze your shoulders really tight. Try making fists with your hands and squeezing the muscles of the arms. Get really, really, really tight. Squeeze the muscles of the face. Take a deep breath in, and then with the exhale, see if you can soften a little more. Notice any physical sensations present. Notice any tingling. And then bring your feet about hip width apart, a comfortable distance from the glutes. We're going to move and breathe with the hips. So we're going to inhale as we lift the hips, exhale as we lower, starting to move with our breath. If you like to add that gentle pause in at the end of the exhale, inhale, lift, exhale slowly, gentle pause. So moving with your own breath pattern, starting to connect breath with movement, and have a real physical practice. Starting to really land in the muscles, in the body. Land the hips on the ground, and we're going to make this movement smaller. So we're going to do a teeny tiny pelvic tilt. So as we inhale, pull the pelvis up without lifting it off the ground. Exhale, lower. So a smaller controlled movement. And if you like, you can place your hands on your hips just to help you stay focused here. Inhale as you pull your pelvis forward and up. Exhale as you lower and soften. Notice any other gripping. So notice if to do this, you press into your feet, you pull into the legs, you pull into the low back. Try to keep this movement right in the hip space, right in the pelvis space. So small, tiny, controlled movement. Try not to over squeeze the glutes. Just kind of, we're thinking about a little bit of freeing in around this low back and hip space. Finding some movement. And then bring your knees in. Give yourself a little hug. Knees towards chest, maybe even rock. Leaving the right foot down on the ground, knee up. We're going to take some movement with the left foot down, knee up. We're going to take some movement with the right leg. So we're going to pull the knee up towards the right shoulder and then press the heel away. So pull the knee up, press the heel away. Start to think about this movement coming from below the hips. So the hips are grounded, the hips are still. We're pulling the knee up and pressing the heel away. Find the muscles of the legs. Wiggle the toes. See if you can find some muscles in your feet. Lower the right foot, knee up. Take a little sway of the knees and hips. And then the left knee comes up. Draw the knee towards the left shoulder. Press the heel away. Inhale as you draw the knee in. Exhale as you press the heel away. Hips nice and steady on the ground. Notice any gripping in the toes, the right foot, any gripping around the shoulders and neck. Soften the face. Bring both knees into the chest, a little hug, and then roll on over to a side and make your way to tabletop. So moving and breathing in tabletop. Inhale, tabletop. Exhale towards a child's pose shape. Moving with your breath, starting to make this movement your own. So letting go of shapes and ideals and just landing on your mat in your physical body, noticing what is present. Noticing how your hands feel, noticing how your back feels, noticing how your arms and shoulders feel. Notice your feet. So maybe a couple with your toes tucked, starting to feel the muscles of the feet. Maybe a couple pressing the tops of the feet down into the ground. Notice your hips. Maybe taking a little side sway left and right with the weight, noticing what is present. And then come on up to tabletop and take the hands further from the shoulders than you normally have them. So make lots of space. And we're going to pull back from the hands with all the muscles of the chest and arms. So rather than landing and putting all the weight on the wrists, we're pulling back. Start to activate all the muscles of the arms and chest. And we're going to practice slowly lowering the elbows towards the ground. and then back. Things to watch for. Watch for buckling in the back and too much movement in the back. So engage the muscles of the stomach if you're prone to moving in your back. Inhale as you lift elbows. Exhale as you slowly lower. Lower the forearms down to the ground and start to really engage. So you're going to try and feel like you're pulling your hands away from each other while keeping them exactly where they are. So really engage, nice and strong. And then we're going to take our nose a teeny bit forward, keeping the shoulders engaged, and then a teeny bit back. Inhale forward. Exhale back. Slow, controlled movement, staying present in the shoulders. If you're just flopping around and not staying present, you're going to be prone to injury. And you're also not getting as much out of this connection, out of this focusing on your muscles and finding that mind-body connection. Slowly bring yourself back to a tabletop position. Bring your hands back to more of a regular shape. We're just going to work through the shoulders a little bit. So we're going to intentionally lower the chest between the shoulders. So this is just hanging out. I'm buckled into my shoulders, no muscular engagement. We're going to intentionally engage and lower and then pull the chest back up. So small, tiny movement, trying to keep the shoulders engaged and trying to connect with the muscles that make this movement happen. Bring it back to tabletop and come to a seated position. Find an easy seat. Find a comfortable seat in whichever way works for you. Maybe just use a chair. We're going to just roll one shoulder at a time, nice and slow. We're going to be using the shoulders a lot today, so we're going to work through the shoulders nice and slow. So rolling one at a time, engaged muscles. And then pull both shoulders up to the ears. And then press the shoulders down. Pull them up. Press them down. Notice anything else that happens. Notice if your low back starts to grip. Notice if your jaw starts to clench. Soften the muscles of the face. Move with your breath. Inhale up. Exhale lower. And then take both hands out, even with the shoulders. Start to engage the arms. So if spreading your fingers wide and opening up your hands is hard for your wrists, make fists, make claws, or take your hands flat. Make strong hands so we're engaged all the way to the fingertips in whatever way works for you. Push the arms out as long as you can. Start to feel the muscles across the chest. And then draw the shoulder blades back together. Push the arms out, shoulder blades back together. This is a small and controlled movement. Watch for lots of movement in the back. We want to be moving right from the rib cage up. So small controlled movement. And then bring both arms down and take one arm at a time in a giant soft circle. One whole breath for each arm. And take this more naturally. Move in whatever way feels right for your own arms. Making like a backstroke. Imagine you're rolling through a nice pond with the sun shining on your face. Move your body, find a little freedom in the torso, start to make the movement a little bigger. And then bring it on back to tabletop. So starting in your tabletop, we're going to start to engage more of a whole body. Tuck the toes, hover the knees. Hold here, floating tabletop. Breathe. Check in on the chest. Make sure the chest is engaged. Lower the knees. Take the hands a little bit further out. Now we're going to lower the forearms down and come to a floating shape with the knees. So keeping those toes tucked, lift and hover the knees. Different shape. Breathe. Watch for tension in the neck. Lower the knees. Back to a tabletop with your arms slightly forward. Engage chest, arms, and shoulders really strong. So option to return to lowering the forearms and lifting up if that felt like super challenging to you. Otherwise, if you're ready to go to the next step, we're going to float the knees and lower the forearms. You do not have to come all the way to the ground, and lift up. Lower and lift up. Watch for this being all in the back. Try to engage the shoulders and arms. Engage the stomach. Engage the legs. Stay present in your breath and your physical body. And then send yourself back to a child's pose break. Take a reset. Find your breath. Return to your extended arm tabletop. Toes tucked. Hover the knees and either repeat lowering forearms, lifting, or we're going to move into dolphin. So begin in dolphin. Lower the forearms. Start to lift the knees. Start to lift the hips. Start to send the legs towards straight. So rather than tippy-toeing your feet in and coming to a full dolphin, we're going to play. So playing in our dolphin shape, we're going to see if we can have a little bend in the knees engaged, arms, shoulders, stomach engaged. See if you can peel up the elbows nice and slow and controlled. And go back to that floating table. Lower two, forearms down, hips up. Switch. Knees hover, arms peel up. Go slow. Stay in your practice. You cannot do this if the mind is somewhere else. Well, you can, but it's not as safe. And when you're done playing, lower your knees, find another child's pose. This time, flip your palms up. And see if you can soften the shoulders or release some more tension in the arms. Find your way to a down dog shape. Warm it up in whatever way feels right for you. And then find the stillness of down dog, turning your world upside down. Maybe taking some deep breaths in and sighing out of the mouth, imagining all of your distractions falling to the mat. And then slowly lift the right leg up to the ceiling. Reach long with the right leg. And then step through low lunge. Finding your blocks, moving through the legs. So inhale forward. Exhale, send this right leg towards straight. Find a low lunge, nice and strong the legs, strong in this core. So really pulling strength into your core. Bend the back leg, and then inhale, rise up nice and slow. High lunge. Hands to our heart space. We're going to bring the weight onto the front leg. Slowly pop up through warrior threes. Challenge your balance. Bend the back leg. Slowly come all the way up to stand with knee forward, left knee forward. And then we're going to move into tree pose. So, watch for the hips. Watch for this right leg, taking all of this strength into the right hip. Roaring this left foot onto the shin first. So once you get here, watch for pushing this right knee backwards too far. Try and have a little soft bend in this right knee so you have energy freely moving through all of the muscles in the right leg. Connect the foot to the shin. So press the foot into the shin and then push the shin back into the foot. Have those two opposing forces going. Hold. Bring your hands to your hips and see if you really do have even hips or if you push this right hip out. Pull it back in. Think about your core muscles being your balancing muscles. Imagine you're pulling your hip bones towards each other with the muscles of the stomach, and then your stomach back to your spine. Get longer and taller in the torso. Then, with these two opposing forces, so foot pushing into shin, shin pushing into foot, slowly use the inner thigh muscles to peel this knee open. Challenge your balance. Lift your prayer up over your head and maybe opening your arms out. Woo. Challenge. Focus on those core muscles. Get stronger and longer in the spine. And then we're going to lower the right arm down. Imagine you're reaching it towards the ground, pressing it towards the ground as you slowly push the left arm up and over. Press, press, press. So thinking about length across that left side of the torso, up and over. Slowly bring it back to neutral. Hands down to prayer. Lower the right foot and tap out. Lower the left foot, tap out the right. So place the ball of the foot down onto the ground. Take little soft, controlled circles of the foot. Feeling the muscles of the foot. And then we're going to connect to our breath. Inhale, arms overhead. Exhale, prayer to heart. Inhale, arms overhead. Exhale, prayer to heart. Hold your prayer at heart and notice how many muscles you can find in your body. Wiggle your toes. Find your feet. Soften the muscles of the low back. Soften the shoulders. Inhale, prayer up overhead. Exhale, prayer all the way down through midline. Find the ground. Step back through high plank. Straight to down dog. So find down dog. Maybe noticing some differences from the first time that we took this pose. And then slowly lift left leg high. Reach the left heel more and more and more to the ceiling. And then step through little lunge. Inhale into a low lunge. Exhale, send that left leg towards straight. Moving with your breath, feeling the muscles of the legs. Find a strong low lunge, both legs super engaged. Torso long. And then slowly rise up. High lunge. Hands to prayer. Weight onto left leg, slowly pop up the right. See if you can find warrior three. Bend the back leg and slowly come all the way up to stand with right knee forward. And then we'll move into that same controlled version of tree. So setting up our base. Hips are even. Right foot finds left shin. Check in on the left knee. Make sure there's a soft little bend. And then press foot into shin, shin into foot. Two forces. Find your hips. Watch for this left hip being too far out. Pull it in. Get nice and long. Imagine you're pulling your hip bones together with your stomach muscles and then pulling your stomach into the spine. Get taller, taller, taller in the spine. Hands to prayer. Breathe. And then pop overhead. Slowly lower left arm. Imagine you're pressing that left arm down to the ground and start to push the right arm up and then slight tilt over, finding space in the right rib cage. Breathe. If your thoughts are pulling you off your mat, you're going to wobble, you're going to fall. Notice what happens when your mind refuses to be in the body. In the present moment. Slowly bring it back up. Neutral. And hands to prayer. Step down with the right foot and tap out the left. And then take soft circles from the ball of the left foot, feeling the muscles of the foot. Nice and slow. Connecting back to our breath. Inhale, arms up overhead. Exhale, prayer to heart. Hold your prayer to heart and notice what is different from the last time that we stood in mountain pose. Inhale, prayer up overhead. Exhale, draw your prayer down through midline, find the ground. Step back, high plank. And then straight to down dog. Notice what is different. If you are ready to take a break and sink into a resting pose for a moment, make your way down to crocodile nice and slow. So all the way down to your stomach, one hand on top of the other, and then forehead down on your hands. If you would like to build upon that dolphin challenge, we're going to move our forearms slowly down towards the ground. So engage the arms and chest and shoulders nice and strong first. A little soft bend in the knees, and then slowly lower the forearms down to the ground. And then slowly pull up, slowly down, slowly pull up, slowly down, hover the knees, take right leg up, and slowly pull the forearms up. Bigger challenge. Move with your breath. Lower the forearms down. Lower that right leg down. Switch sides. Left leg lifts. Pull up. Nice and slow. With control. And then lower the left leg, lower the knees, and slowly make your way down to crocodile. Once you get here, shimmy the hips, loosen, soften. What can you let go of? Move and breathe through the muscles at the back line. So really focusing on trying to get even in the muscles at the back line. Bringing your hands to balance on the ground first. We're going to inhale, lift the shoulders, exhale, lower. Try to find the muscles at the back, the upper back, the mid back, the low back, the glutes, and the backs of the legs nice and even. So not overusing the glutes, not overusing the muscles of the neck. So thinking about lifting the shoulders rather than lifting the head. And then maybe starting to float up the hands and the feet. Thinking about getting longer in the spine every time you lift. And then bring it back down to crocodile. Shimmy the hips, loosen and soften. Slowly make your way back through tabletop to down dog. Find your breath. Inhale, lift the right leg. Exhale, step through. Lower the back leg. Warrior two legs. Come on up. Find your base. So if you have your chair, you're going to get your chair in front of the right leg. Set up your base. Warrior two legs. Nice and strong. So imagine you're using all of the muscles of the right leg. How do you know that? See how many you can find. Find that mind-body connection. Arms can be out. They can be at hips if your arms and shoulders are tired. See if you can find more muscles in this left leg. See if you can be strong in your base. And then we're going to inhale, straighten up the right leg. Exhale, bend into the right leg. So watch for sinking in. So there's so many ways that we can land in this hip. We can land in the knee. We can find lots of space without muscular engagement. So we're looking for muscular engagement. Inhale as we draw this right leg towards straight. Exhale as we pull with the muscles and the knee. Arms can lift up overhead. And exhale, open, or you can just keep them at your hips. Focusing in on the legs, finding more muscles in the legs. Find a warrior two pose where you're super strong and engaged, not hanging out. So warrior pose, think strong warrior. Right arm comes out even, and we're going to press it forward, forward, forward until we feel our torso engaging. Hold here. So think about these muscles right here between the hip and the rib cage. Slowly bring that right arm down and really engage. So instead of pushing from the arm, you're going to think about pulling from the armpit. So lengthening the torso, really engaging in this oblique area. Hold here. Look at the right hand. Look at the chair. Slowly bring your hand onto the chair and see if you can pop up the left leg nice and slow. You may need to pop it forward, hop it forward a little. Pull into the muscles of the right leg. Pull into the muscles of the torso. Pull this left leg up. Woo. And you need to stay on the mat and focus or you're not going to get it. Pull, pull, pull. So using this right arm on the chair as balance support, not landing in and dumping into the wrist. So we're pulling up, engaging in the torso. Press the left heel away from you. Draw the right knee slowly in towards the chest. And then press the left and right challenge today. Draw the left knee in towards the chest and press the heel away. So all of this movement in the leg, torso remains engaged, so we're not moving around in the hips and the low back. Pull forward, push away. Pull forward, push away. Watch for sinking into that right wrist. Watch for buckling in the right shoulder. Pull up, engage in the torso. Find these oblique muscles. If you really are ready for a balance challenge, you're going to try and lift up off the chair and make this movement happen. Whew, it's challenging. Wherever you're at, slowly lower back down. Warrior two legs, and then reverse triangle. Breathe. Bring your hands to your hips, turn toes out, heels in, star pose the legs, and then slowly lower to a goddess. So take some movement in your goddess, feeling the muscles of your legs. So move your weight around left to right. Move your feet. Move your heels. Feel the muscles of your legs. Feel the ways that you can move in this pose with your muscles engaged. Try to have a physical experience. Maybe just bringing one heel up at a time. You can have your hands on your hips. We did a lot of shoulder work, so keep your arms. Give your arms a break. You can also peel one heel in and back. Peel another heel in. Take some playtime movement with your muscles. We're trying to find that connection. What happens when we move in certain ways? What can you feel present in your own body? And what happens to your breath when you're moving around in your legs? When you lose your focus and you happen to run off in your thoughts? What happens in your breath? What happens in your shoulders? What happens in your face? Taking some movement, feeling your hips, feeling your legs. Slowly straighten up your legs to star pose. Turn left foot back in, right foot back out. Back to warrior 2 feet. Find your legs, find your pose. Soften into warrior 2. Strengthen arms and shoulders. Pivot on the back foot. Frame out the front. Moving your chair if you need to. Send the right foot to meet the left and back to down dog. Breathe. Slowly lift left leg high. Step through lower back leg and come up warrior 2 on the other side. I'm going to switch over so I'm not facing you with my back. Find your warrior 2 feet. So practice. Chilling out, sinking in without any muscle engagement. See what it feels like. Where do you go? Just hanging out in the flexibility of your joints, no muscle engagement. Notice what that feels like, because that's pretty much what happens most of the time when you're not in your practice. So what does that feel like? What does it feel like to have no muscle engagement? And then feel like your muscles are engaged, you're stabilizing, feel like you're doing some work. So even if you've done this pose a trillion times, this pose can still be work, because you can still think about engaging the muscles in a different way. You can still feel that push-pull. So the pull of gravity drawing you down into the ground, and the push of your muscles strengthening and pulling yourself back out. These opposing forces, start to connect to them. Start to engage. Breathe. And then with muscle control and mind-body connection, inhale as you straighten up the front leg. Exhale as you lower. Both legs remain engaged. See if you can feel the pull up from the back right heel. See if you can feel the pull up from the left heel. So you're pulling up out of the ground. You're lowering and opening. Breathe. And then find a strong warrior two. You're going to start to bring the torso forward. So left arm reaches forward, but the movement comes from the torso. So really pull the ribcage over, hold, engage in the ribcage, especially the oblique space, and then the torso. So right in between the ribcage and the hip, you can even bring your hands here to remind you where you want to be strong. Breathe. And then if you have your chair, you're going to bring your fingertips onto the chair. Start to bring the weight onto the left leg, really staying engaged in this space, strong in the torso. Pop this right foot a little bit further forward, and then pull it up. So really pull with the muscles of both legs and the torso, nice and strong and slow. Hold. Left fingertips are lightly balancing. Breathe. And keeping the hips steady. Inhale, draw the right knee in towards the chest. Exhale, press the heel away. Watch for sinking into that left shoulder. Maybe even challenging your balance. Bring this left hand up. And then slowly, with control, lower back down to warrior two. Find a warrior two, strong warrior two. Pivot on the back foot, frame out the front. Step back, high plank, and then lower the knees and find child's pose. So whatever version of child's pose feels right for you. Take a little reset, find your breath. Slowly come to a seated position. Take the legs out in front and give them a good shake. Slowly make your way down to your back. Hips on the ground, shoulders on the ground, knees up, feet on the ground. Find your breath. Take your feet wider than your mat. So with leaving our hips where they are, slowly lower the left knee towards center. So just try to feel where your leg stops, what seems to be holding it. Just feel. So rather than rolling the hip over and sending the knee towards the ground, keep the hips where they are and just sort of feel the natural stopping point of your knee, which muscles and tendons and things seem to be holding it there. And then slowly bring it back up. Right knee towards the ground. So not pressing. So this is a force. You're pressing with your muscles, which is a force towards the joint. So you have to pay attention here. If you're not paying attention, you could just injure the knee. So pay attention to what happens in your knee. When you make this strange shape, where is the point where you feel restriction in the knee and the leg? And don't press into that. Feel it and then come back from it and just see if you can find a little more space in the leg. And bring it back. And then slowly bring the heels together and pull the knees down towards the ground. So notice where there tends to be holding and gripping here. Notice if it's around the knees. Notice if it's in on the inner thigh. Notice if it's in the low back. So many places where we can hold our tension and restrictions. So notice. Notice if you bring the focus more to pressing your feet together, if you feel a little more space. So press the feet together. Notice. Notice if you soften the feet and really make sure you soften the glutes if there seems to be a little more space. So take a little play, take a little experimentation. If I squeeze my glutes really tight and press my feet together, where are my knees? Where do my restrictions feel like they are? And then if I soften my glutes, do I pull into my low back? Really starting to feel your own holding patterns, your own body. See what is present. And then as we're focusing on the low body, take a little check-in on the head. See if you made any tension in your shoulder, in your neck, in your face, in your jaw. And then start to see if allowing the knees to be open, allowing the legs and hips to start to soften in this space. If you get a little more opening, notice if it feels like it's pulling more tension anywhere, maybe in the inner thighs, maybe in the lower back. Just start to have a physical experience. So rather than thinking of a goal of, oh, in this position, my knees must get to the ground. So rather than having a goal, start to have an experience. Start to feel what is present in your own body. And maybe if you are super comfortable in this position, experiment with slowly and gently wiggling your heels closer to your glutes. See what is present in this space. Or wiggle your heels further away from your glutes. What happens? So notice if one way makes it a little tighter on your low back. Notice if one way makes it a little tighter in your knees. Starting to really make practice your practice. Letting go of ideals of shapes. Letting go of ideals of body. And just getting to know what is present in your own shape, in your own body. And then if this is a super comfortable position for you, if you feel absolutely no tension in the muscles, especially in the inner thighs or the low back, feel free to stay in this position. However, I do recommend for this to truly be a resting pose that you prop your knees up just above your lowest position. So if my knee, even if it flops all the way to the ground, so let's say my knee flops all the way to the ground easily, which it kind of does, I am going to prop my knee just above the ground so that my muscles know exactly where the ground is and the inner thigh can truly, truly, truly rest. If this open hip position is comfortable for you. So there's reasons why this can be very comforting. There's reasons why this can be beneficial. You're open in the hips. There's lots of things that we hold in our hips and our muscles in our hips. So this can be very rewarding to have your hips open in a feeling where you feel secure in a moment. There are benefits to resting and meditating in this shape. However, if you are just looking to try and get to a perfect shape and you're just looking to have that extra stretch at the end of the practice, it's not really the purpose of this next exercise, next part of our practice. So make the choice. We have the chair. If you have the chair, you can put your feet up in the chair. Make the choice of where your body wants to be for its resting pose. Resting being the most important part of that sentence. So we worked the shoulders a lot today. And there's always a reason why we do things. We're not doing a gym workout. We're not doing a physical fitness routine, though there are physical fitness benefits from the practice. This is a yoga class, a yoga practice. There are reasons why we work with certain things, and today's reason for the shoulders is because oftentimes we hold a lot in our shoulders. So one of the ways that we can get to know what is present in the shoulders is simply to work the muscles in different ways. Find where we're weak, find where we seem to be over tight, and increase that mind-body connection so that when we are starting to creep our shoulders up from stress, so your shoulders creep, or they pull forward in protection, you have no idea because this is normal. Like your body thinks, your mind-body connection thinks that this is normal. Like this is your protection pose and it doesn't send you any brain signals until you mindfully check in and you say, oh, maybe I should assess what's going on in my shoulders so I can start to feel a little less physical tension here. And then when we start to work on that physical tension, what happens in the rest of the system? So they're all interconnected, and one doesn't cause the other always. It's a circular thing. They're all interconnected. So when the shoulders pull forward, maybe this pose itself starts to create feelings and thoughts. When the feelings and thoughts happen, maybe they start to pull the body in certain ways. So sometimes it's one or the other, sometimes it's multiple things. But starting to have that connection with the muscles can really help us start to notice, and perhaps more quickly than when it's too late, when the whole system is just in utter chaos and struggling. So we worked our shoulders. Can you start to feel your shoulders loosening and softening? And can you start to feel the shoulder blades really feeling gravity, really starting to melt into the ground? And with anxious feelings or energies, oftentimes we feel them right in our chest. So start to imagine that as your shoulder blades are softening and finding support of the ground below, can you start to imagine drawing fresh breath in through the either side of the neck, down and across over to the tips of your shoulders. So in, breathing in, down your neck, down either side of your neck, and then across to the tips of the shoulders. So as if you're pulling fresh energy into all of these muscles, the muscles that hold tension up in the jaw, the muscles that hold tension down the neck, and then across these muscles of the chest, as if you're pulling in all that fresh energy, fresh oxygen, intentionally sending it to these particular muscles. And then with the exhale, imagine just gently sweeping away anything no longer needed, maybe some of that tension. So this is an imaginative practice with our breath. Whatever helps you connect with that. So maybe you can connect with the idea of your breath being that fresh oxygen, and you're just going to send it right to particular muscles. You're going to intentionally tell your natural body system to do something with that fresh energy. Maybe that works for you. If you have struggled with that, imagine a color or a temperature working with your breath. So imagine you're drawing in a color, and it starts in at your tip of your nose as you're drawing the breath in, and then you're going to send it down the sides of your neck, bring it all the way to the shoulders, and then maybe as the exhale comes, the color changes. So it sweeps away in some other color. So make it as visual, depending on how your mind, your brain works. Maybe your visual, maybe it's a texture or a temperature that you're pulling in and pulling out. So whatever helps you connect to this process of drawing in fresh all the way down the neck, all the way to the tips of the shoulders, and then letting everything that's no longer needed come back out with the exhale. Moving with your breath in an intentional way. And whenever the mind starts to pull you somewhere else, gently return. So first scan, when the mind has pulled you off the mat, did something happen to the muscles of the chest and shoulders? Maybe to the muscles of the jaw, maybe to the muscles of the face. Start to check in first, and then go back to the practice. So any relaxation practice, any meditation practice, it's not perfecting the practice that is beneficial to the system. It is simply the practice, the focused practice, the discipline to return to a practice. So it's not getting it perfect, it is the practice itself. So it's not about getting to 1,000 times you can breathe without your mind distracting you. It is the getting to the point that you can know when the mind has distracted you and gently pull your awareness back. And some days, even after many years of practice, the mind may just pull you back after every breath, and you may need to start after every breath. And some days, maybe you'll get many, many, many breaths in before you notice you pull yourself away. And some days, maybe you've gone in a whole long story with your cognitive mind before you notice you've forgotten your practice. None of these are right or wrong. It is just practice. It is just drawing your focus back, drawing your focus back, practicing, exercising the focus of the mind. It is not emptying the thoughts because the thoughts are there. The thoughts are random. They are firings of the mind. Just the way the mind works, the way that the mind, the cognitive head, is trying to process the whole system. And sometimes the whole system cannot be cognitively processed. Sometimes things in our whole system need to be felt. They need to be processed with the other parts of the system. So if you are able to take some time practicing this concept of drawing your breath intentionally to certain places of your body and then sweeping away tension, please take the time, soften into this practice. Take as much time as you need. You need to finish up at 60 minutes. We are right on that. So we begin to bring yourself back to present moment and curl up in a ball in a fetal position. Start to return to present moment for just a few more moments. Off the mat is yet to come, or off the mat is usually already been. Just try to be here on this mat. What can you feel for just a few more moments? And then slowly bring yourself to a seated position and bring your hands to heart space. Complete your practice in a familiar ritual. Bring your left and right sides to meet in front of your heart, as if accepting yourself as whole and complete, precisely as you are. Acknowledging your inner wisdom, acknowledging your ever-fluctuating mind, acknowledging the emotional state, the energetic state that also flows and ebbs. And then think about all of these systems working in harmony together, balanced. Not one part fighting the other. Imagine yourself as a whole balanced working unit. Not one side dark and one side light. Not one side good and one side bad, but a whole balanced working unit. May you know a little peace, a little calm, and a whole lot of connection throughout your day. Thank you for joining me.